So what is rent control and why do we have it? In Denmark, we've introduced rent control as a way of setting a limit for how much a landlord can charge in rent. The reason we have this in Denmark is that we want to make sure that tenants have disposable income to invest and that they're not paying all of their hard earnings on rent. This is to try and help try to create social mobility in the society and also equality. What we would have if we didn't have a rent-controlled market, the effect would be that many of these larger capital investment firms would have a large incentive to purchase a lot of the available apartments, and this would drive up the overall prices of apartments, making it much harder for people to actually own and have property. What we've seen in markets where there's no rent control, what typically happens is that a large portion of the market will get bought up by investment firms, and then rent prices will increase dramatically. I think a good example of this is how the market functions in London. I don't think that's a good idea, and neither does the Danish government, so that's why we have rent control. What buildings are rent controlled? As a rule of thumb, buildings built before 1992 are rent controlled. Buildings built after 1992 are exempt from rent control, and that was the way to create an incentive for entrepreneurs to build new buildings. There are also some exceptions where if you have previously commercial real estate, let's say a factory, which you've after 1992 have converted into apartments, then the landlord actually has the right to set the rent freely as long as it's written very specifically in the section 11 of the contract. Other exceptions is if you have a building where there was previously a loft, which was used for storage, which we then converted into an apartment after 2002. In those situations, the landlord can also set the rent freely. But for all other properties built before 1992, it's rent controlled and there's a limit to how much you can charge. What should be the price for rent controlled housing? This is obviously a very complicated area, but as a rule of thumb, we think that if you live in a very shabby old apartment, the price will probably be around 3,000 kroner per 50 square meter per month. If you then move up to what would be considered an average apartment, might have been modernized in the 90s or so, the rent will be around 4,000 to 4,500 kroner per 50 square meter per month. And then you have the upper limit. Now we're talking newly modernized apartments, which are also furnished. Then you could get around 6,000 to 6,500 kroner per 50 square meter per month. That's like the general range we see for rent-controlled housing. So how is rent control enforced? Many people we talk with don't believe that their rent level should be what we say it is because they're saying, well, no one rents out of these prices. And we see that also to be true. There's very little incentive for landlords to actually follow these rules, as the worst that can happen is that the rent will get set at the level it should have been to start with. In each municipality, there's a rent control board, which is a judicial entity that can make rulings on what the rent level should be for a given apartment. And the prices vary a bit between municipalities, but the previous rent levels as stated is generally what we see. The thing is, so for landlords, they actually have an option of getting their rent level pre-approved before a tenant moves in if they want to be in compliance with the law. We don't see this happen very often, but there's no way of a landlord just saying, well, I didn't know what the rent level should be, because they have this option, which is actually fairly cheap, to have it evaluated if they want to comply with the law. But again, very little incentive to do so, as many tenants are looking for housing and landlords are trying to set the rent as high as possibly. And hopefully they'll get a tenant who won't challenge the rent to get it reduced to the legal level. So that's what we're basically seeing. What deadlines should you be aware of if you find out that you're overpaying for rent control housing? As a rule of thumb, you can get a back payment of the overpaid rent as long as you file a case within 12 months of moving in or 12 months from a rent increase. And this goes even though you've moved out. Let's say you stayed in an apartment for 8 months, find out you overpaid, then you can actually file the case after you've moved out and still get a back payment of the overpaid rent. There are certain exceptions where rental back payments can go back 3 years, but it's not a majority of the cases we see, as it has to do with a certain pricing methodology that has to apply to the given apartment. But we do see cases like that where clients can then get back, 150, 200,000 in some cases of overpaid rent. So now you've seen our presentation regarding rent control, and if you believe that you're overpaying and want to get an evaluation of your case, and if you have any questions, which you most likely have, then get in touch with us. We evaluate all cases for free, and we work no win, no pay, which means you only pay us once you have reduced rent and the money back you're owed. Yeah, so get in touch with us, and we'd be happy to help you out. Yeah, that's it for me. Bye.